Well, there's been a lot of pinch hitting going on around here. I was supposed to be up here last Sunday pinch hitting for Mark, who was back in Milwaukee because of Beth's emergency surgery. But then I got COVID, so Kurt pinch hit for me. And then Mark came back, but then Mark got COVID. And so, we're all on the same team. That's the way to look at it. So, a couple of weeks ago, Jan and I went to see the musical Legally Blonde at Santa Barbara City College, probably where I got COVID. And the play and the music, it was wacky, it was highly entertaining, it was a lot of fun, it was a little off color, and there was a celebration of a lot of stock messages that we have heard over and over and over in our times, in our culture. Believe in yourself. Gosh, there's a new idea. Who has ever heard that one? Assert yourself. You can be flirty and sexy and sexually manipulative, but don't get taken advantage of. Some of the messages from Legally Blonde. And I left that show thinking, as I often do when I hear those messages, about the irony that here we are, this generation, we have heard these messages. Maybe we're the most praised, most self-encouraged generation of all time. And yet we are also the most anxious, the most lonely, the most suspicious, the most divided generation. And these anxiety stats that I've got up here on the screen. So American teens in 2009, 26% said they were persistently sad. But by 2021, 44% of American teens said they were persistently sad. The people who said that they have no close friends quadrupled between 1990 and 2020. Today, 36% of Americans say they are frequently lonely. And this decline in social relationship is evident in the kind of books that come out over and over and over again. We have The Lonely Century. We have our epidemic of loneliness and isolation. We have the crisis of connection. And at the same time, people want to work remotely and be isolated, as in this comic. I see on your application you'd like to work remotely. Yeah, I want to get away from people so much I want to go to outer space. But when I hear about people working remotely and everybody kind of cheering that, I just feel a little worried. It's just not part of how we're made. I mean, I get it, there are good reasons, but I think we're increasingly isolated. I read a delightful novel recently called Leonard and Hungry Paul, and the introverted character Leonard was described in this way at one point. Leonard was discovering that the more he separated himself from others, the more they became unfathomable and perplexing. He was less critical of people when he allowed them in. I mean, we know this. We're social beings. We're not meant to live in silos and isolation. The human organism was designed by God to love. If we're ever at a loss, well, what should we do? Love. That's how we are made. It's a deep longing in us. And that song, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Okay, I'm not Nat King Cole. And this whole backdrop of where we are at reminds me of an African greeting. So I'm sure you've heard this. Zulu phrase, maybe not the phrase, but the English translation. The Zulu say when they greet one another, sawubona, sawubona. It means, I see you. And there are a number of different responses that people give. One of them is yebo, I see you too. And I just love this. You know, we say, zup, dude. And the answer is, dude. And sometimes it's just shortened to, dude, dude. But I love this. I see you. More than words of politeness, sawubona carries the importance of recognizing the worth and dignity of each person. It says, I see the whole of you. Your experiences, your passions, your pain, your strengths and weaknesses, and your future. You are valuable to me. I mean, we want to be seen. And wouldn't it be wonderful to hear this, I see you. So, I'm going to say to you, sawubona, and you say to me, yebo. Sawubona. Yebo. My message this morning is simple. Jesus says sawubona to us. And he promises that we will see him. He sees us, and it matters. So, my first point, my first idea here is that Jesus sees us in our need and promises that we will see him. So, a little context to this passage that Sharon read in John 14. It comes after Jesus washes the disciples' feet and then says to do likewise, and he predicts the betrayal of Judas, and he says Peter will deny him, and he says he's going to go prepare a place for us after he dies. What, you're dying, and that the Holy Spirit's going to come when he leaves. You know, and maybe we've heard this so often, we don't really feel how outrageous a lot of these things would be to see and hear all at one time. I pictured a little bit like this. Like the person I most admire comes into my home and starts cleaning my toilets. And then says, you know what, you need to do like I do with everyone and wash their toilets. And then he says, you know what, your sister-in-law is going to be a double crosser. But don't worry, I've got a Montecito estate waiting for you after you die. I'm like, what? I mean, it's a lot to process, and they're pretty out there ideas. And then after all of that, Jesus says this, I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you, and before long the world will not see me anymore, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. And on that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. The one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them. Verse 18, I will not leave you as orphans, Jesus says. I like the new RSV says, I will not leave you orphaned, makes it a verb. Jesus says, I see you. I see you. I see you in your need. I mean, I don't know about you, but I sometimes feel like an orphan. I feel abandoned, cut off, like I don't have any connections. Maybe you have these experiences. Sometimes we feel alone and isolated and orphaned, even when we're around people we know, even after church in the courtyard. Even with our family, sometimes we can feel orphaned. Sometimes with our spouse, sometimes with our children, we can feel orphaned. And I just want to hear Jesus come around to us and say, Mark and Beth, wherever you are, at home sick, in Milwaukee, in your recovery, you have not been orphaned. Jeff Schloss, with your long COVID, you have not been left as an orphan. Charlie Beck, in your recovery, You have not been orphaned. Matt and Drew, in your new jobs that take you so many different places and pull on you in so many ways, you have not been left as an orphan. God sees us. Years ago, Janet's siblings came to the house to plan for their mother's memorial service. Connie was dying after 10 years of Alzheimer's, and all the sibs came. So the four of them were in the living room talking about what scriptures to use, what hymns to use, and they didn't on purpose leave me out of that conversation because they were the siblings, right? But I felt really excluded, and I ended up talking with them about it. I said, hey, look, you have to realize that given my family background with my parents drinking for 20 years, my mom getting cirrhosis, my mom dying, I'm alienated from my sister, I'm alienated from my brother, you are my family. So you can't leave me orphaned. You can't leave me outside of this conversation. And they didn't. And they brought me in. Verse 19. Jesus said, the world will not see me, but you will see me. I kind of went into this thinking what really matters is that Jesus sees us. I got to want to be seen, right? But as I got into these scriptures, I thought, wow, Jesus is really emphasizing the fact that we get to see him, and he's going to make that happen. We will be empowered to see him because we're in relationship to him. So I've recently retired, and we moved into this big mobile home park that we love, and you walk around, and you see people all the time. And most of the people I see there, they don't know me. I mean, they learn my name, and they say hi. But they don't know me. They don't know me in the way that my students know me. I mean, when I see my alumni, they know me. They see me. Why? Because they're in relationship with me. We have a history, and that's why we can see Jesus. So then we look at verse 21. What does this seeing look like? Jesus sees us, we see him. What does that look like? I will love you and I will show myself to you. It's a certain relationship, this seeing relationship. It's a loving relationship. Seeing has to do with love. Jesus sees me for who I am. He sees me in my pride, in my anger, in my lust. I mean, you go down the 7 deadly sins. I've got them. He sees me in my generosity, in my authenticity, in my love. He isn't seeing only my public self, the self that's getting up in front of a stage and preaching at Montecito Covenant. He doesn't just see that self. He sees me in my deepest self, in my worst self. I mean, that's why it's such a more powerful fact that Janet loves me than it does that my students love me. Because she's seen me at my worst. Are you kidding me? Really? You were there when I did that to you? And you still love me? Wow. Seeing has to do with love. And all the more so with Jesus. So my second point here this morning is that having been seen, we are empowered to see. Having been loved, we are empowered to love. Let's look at this passage in John 15 that Sharon read. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my guilt. Oh, wait, no. It doesn't say to remain in guilt. It says to remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that you would be burdened by perfectionism. Oh, no, that's wrong. so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. My command is this, judge one another. Oh, no, I did it again. No, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. So we see there in verse 9 and 10, I have loved you. So because of that, remain in me by loving each other. I just find this incredibly consoling. I mean, we are seen, we are loved, we will love one another, we will be seen, we will see those who need to be loved. I mean, it really sounds like good news to me. And as children of God, this is how we are made. We are made to be lovers. And so, I love this. And it's a guiding phrase. So Jesus says, love each other as I have loved you. I mean, this makes sense, right? Because he told us to follow him. So we're going to love others as he has loved others. So what does that look like? I mean, what has Jesus taught us about how to love? What did he model for us? So I'd like you to take just a couple minutes among yourselves and think of maybe one way that Jesus taught us to love. What's something Jesus did that you think, yeah, he's showing me how to love? So chat among yourselves for a couple minutes. So let's hear a couple of ways. I mean, I know maybe not all of you talked, but I'm feeling bad for Bob Gundry back there. I see you. I see you there. So what are a couple of ways that Jesus modeled how to love?
He was unoffended by criticism.
Not offended by criticism. That's great. Yeah. What else? I couldn't hear if somebody said something there. Calls us by name, okay, right? Knows us, okay. Patient, okay, patient with his disciples lots of the time, not all the time, right?
He always had his eyes on eternity.
Okay, great, okay, and that's a way to love others. All right. He's tender with the children. He's gracious with the woman at the well. He's other-centered with the disciples. And it all sounds really great and really inspiring and gives us a lot of things to imitate. Frederick Buechner says it's also a little despairing to think about Jesus as our model. He says, if Jesus is an example of being fully human, then what am I? He says, most of us escape so much by being less than fully alive. But Jesus seems to escape nothing. The dead sparrow, the woman touching the hem of his robe as he passes by, the disciples shooing away the children, the sawed-off little crook named Zacchaeus up in a tree to see him come through town. Always, with all of himself, he seems to be vulnerable to all of it, and especially to the pain that is around him, not just the pain of the crippled and the bereaved, but the slow, unspoken pain of being human. It's not enough to just have the model of Jesus held up to us. We need help. And so my third point this morning is that we are transformed by God's Spirit into lovers, and loving others transforms us. Just before that passage that Sharon read in John 14, Jesus promised his Spirit, the counselor that would come and help. And in that John 14 passage, 14:19, Jesus says, "Because I live, you also will live." And of course, not merely physically live, just be alive, but to live with life as new creatures, to be changed into his likeness by his resurrection power, learning how to love and forgive. We get help from the Spirit. And I really like what David Brooks adds to this. So here's his most recent book, How to Know a Person. I've got the picture of it up there partly as a little bit of an advertisement. I'm going to be teaching an adult Sunday school in the fall, kind of integrating Christian thought with David Brooks' book here, How to Know a Person. But here's what he adds to this idea of being transformed. In How to Know a Person, Brooks says, "The way we attend to others determines the kind of person we become. If we see people generously, we will become generous. If we view them coldly, we will become cold." So we might consider other attitudes that we have as we go about seeing others. We might regard others with hope, and it helps us become a hopeful person, be transformed by the Spirit into a hopeful person. If we view people consistently with judgment, I mean, it's very hard to be a forgiving person if you're judging others consistently. If we are attentive to others and giving ourselves to them, we become an attentive person. And on and on. We can think of lots of examples. When I think here, I remember Jim Halverson, who passed away a couple of years ago. In fact, was it yesterday? Was the anniversary of the memorial service that we had for him here. Well, Jim appreciated others enthusiastically. I mean, you knew that he was on your side and he wanted to know what you could share with him. And I think this just helped make him a grateful person, which he was. He was being transformed by how he treated others. So here's my last example. My last example is a conversation I had somewhat recently with my brother, Jeff. It's after we became much closer friends than when Connie was passing. So many years have gone by here. And we were talking about how we reacted and adjusted to my parents drinking. My brother was in a program that was transformative for him. And so I wanted to find out about that, and we were talking about it. And I said, so, how do you think we responded to this? And Jeff said, well, you and I, we are 50% the same person and 50% opposites. Oh, okay. All right. He said, you are fight and I am flight. Oh, you just nailed it. And you see me. Yes, I was the one who confronted my parents. I'm the one that offered resistance. I'm the one in that situation that fought. And that has served me, and it has harmed me over the years to have that response to things. And my brother was flight. He ran. He wasn't there. But that served him in becoming much more of a peacemaker and someone to whom others could go. And it harmed him in some ways. But at the end of that conversation, I just thought, wow, you understand. You see me. And even so, you love me. So in our time of loneliness and anxiety, Jesus sees us in our need and promises that we will see him. And having been seen, we are empowered to see others. And we are transformed by God's Spirit into lovers. And loving others transforms us. Jesus says, Salbona. He doesn't leave us orphaned. We can love like he did because he lives in us. So to you, I say Salbona, and you say Yebo. We'll try it again. Salbona. Amen.
He knows my name. He knows my every thought. He sees each tear that falls and hears me when I call. Yes, he knows my name. He knows my name. He knows my every thought. He sees each tear that falls and hears me when I call. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. In all my days, I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness. Would you stand with us and sing, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been faithful. Yes, all my life. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you've been faithful. Let's sing it out. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down to surrender now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Thank you, Lord. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, surrender now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'll sing 'cause you're good. You know me, you know my name. Let's sing, He knows my name. He knows my name. He knows my every thought. He sees each tear that falls and hears me when I call. You know my name. You know my name. Yes, you do. You know my every thought. You see each tear that falls, and you hear me when I call. You know my name. You know my name. You know my every thought. You see each tear that falls, and you hear me when I call. 'Cause all my life you've been faithful. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Yes, I'll sing. Oh, I will sing of the goodness